All right, y'all, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Lourdes, and what I do is I help you prepare and study and help you to stay encouraged to pass in the NCMHCE exam. So today we're going to be talking about psychotic disorders from delusion to diagnosis. Yes, you read that right. This is going to be your crash course on everything you need to know. So grab your notebook, get comfortable, and let's learn together. Speaking of notes, I've uploaded all of my slides for you to print or download. For you to print or download, it is on my what is that thing called? Buy Me a Coffee, right? So essentially, they are free. But if you feel led to sow into this ministry, you can do so through the same link. Every seed helps me to continue creating and helps fund future projects. Like I want to print out a physical workbook with all of my narratives that I have yet to share yet to help others study, because I know there's a lot of things on the market, and just like Layla said, that they don't really help you study. I know, I took this test 4 times, right? So that's the premise of doing that. So every seed helps me continue creating, and it helps me fund those projects. And also my flashcards. Some of you guys want my flashcards, and they are digital. If you sow a seed, that will help me save the resources so I can get them physical and in your hand. Okay? And I'm not even much finna hold you. My 9 to 5 don't stretch far enough for me to cover those expenses for the vision that I have. But I do believe in what we're building here together. So please, if my content blesses you, please support by sharing, liking, subscribing, or sowing a seed, either or. Even if you can't financially support, every time you share it, every time you like, you subscribe, and you comment, that helps me. It truly makes a difference. All right, so before we dive in, here are our learning objectives for today. We're going to be breaking down the different psychotic disorders. We're going to learn how to differentiate them and connect that knowledge to real world example, because that's how you remember it for the exam and for clinical practice. And I know they'll tell you, oh, just do narratives, do narratives. In theory, that sounds good, but essentially it doesn't, because if you don't have the foundations, you don't have the knowledge that you need, how you're going to assess your clinical judgment, right? So I'm going to be using a few examples to help you really understand how these symptoms show up in real life. And remember, this is a safe space. We listen, we learn, and we don't judge, okay? Now, real talk. Remember I said we listen and we don't judge? Okay, this is what I mean. When I was a teenager, right, I was very delusional. Yes, your girl was delusional, because I swore me and Chris Brown was gonna be together, y'all. And that was before social media, okay? Now, baby, if I had Twitter back then, I probably would have been like, Christopher, baby, when you finally run it this way, let me see if you can run it over here, okay? Now, I want y'all to be honest. Drop your celebrity delusions in the comments below, because I really thought me and him were destined to be together, okay? Oh, and while we're at it, another song I want to point out is the Stand song by Eminem. That just popped into my head because I don't know if you remember that song. If you don't, use your music streaming platform, Spotify, whatever, and go search up Stand by Eminem. That one was a song about a fan who was writing letters, and every letter, if you listen to the lyrics, he was getting more and more delusional and obsessed. That's kind of what we're going to be talking about today. So let's get into it. We got a lot to learn, and by the end of this video, you should be able to spot the difference between delusion, obsession, and psychosis like a pro, okay? So let's start with what psychosis actually is. Psychosis is not just somebody is crazy, okay? I'm going to repeat that again. Psychosis is not calling or assuming someone is crazy. It's in actuality, clinically, it's when a person loses touch with reality. Think of it like their brain's Wi-Fi connection, right? Their Wi-Fi connection to reality. if I'm being specific, right? So they connection to reality keeps dropping, okay? And we got three main symptom sets that helps you to differentiate the loss of reality. You have positive symptoms, okay? So when you see positive symptoms, think of extra things that should not be there, like hallucinations, delusions, disorganized speech or behavior patterns. So think of it like an enhancement to their like five senses, okay? Now we have negative symptoms. Negative symptoms, this is how I remember it. It's stuff that should be there, like their motivation, their affect, their facial expression, right? But it's not there, okay? And then you have cognitive symptoms. Those are memory and thinking glitches that make day-to-day functioning hard. And you know, your girl love a good mnemonics. And here's this one, right? BFZADSM. Kind of like you're a cheerleader. BFZADSM. And this is how you're going to remember it. Brief psychotic, schizophreniform, that's what the F, because the F in schizophreniform, and schizophrenia, the A at the end, and then schizoaffective and delusional, substance and medical. I know it sounds crazy, but it will make sense in the end, I promise, okay? So BFZADSM. Brief psychotic, schizophrenia, schizoaffective, delusional, substance, and medical. Okay, so this is where I like to think it gets fun. I know, right? That's just how my brain works. So the way to summarize psychosis is by these two songs. That song that go, I always feel like somebody's watching me. That right there, that's persecutory delusion. So when somebody is like, oh, somebody's looking at me or the government's after me, think persecutory delusion. And then we have that song by the Ghetto Boys. I cannot rap. That is not my talent. But I know the beat. It goes dun 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 dun. My mind's playing tricks on me. That right there, that's your hallucination, okay? One is a belief distortion, the other is a perception distortion. And I know those songs are permanently stuck in your head. They're an earworm, like Bruno, right? So you're welcome. So those are the musical anchors I want you to remember, because this is how you're going to categorize the belief distortion, whether it's a perception distortion or whether it is a belief distortion, okay? Perception distortion is like hallucinations. Belief distortions are delusions. Okay, hallucinations comes in different flavors. 5 different flavors to be exact, right? You have auditory, when you're hearing voices or whispers. That's the big one. Like that song Careless Whispers. I don't know why this category got songs in my head, like Kenny G, Careless Whispers or whatever. Those are auditory hallucination. Then you have visual. That's like seeing things like shadows or figures, right? Then you have olfactory, where you smell odors or things that others don't perceive. That, and then when someone give you that they're experiencing that delusion and it's olfactory, think about what is it called? I want you to think medical, because some people, before they have seizures, they will start smelling things. And also think about the Breaking Bad, if you saw that show on Netflix, where they're doing the chemicals and he's going through his chemo and cancer and he starts hallucinating those different smells and things. And then you have gustatory. Those are like taste hallucination, when you're tasting things without source, like things like that. It's rare, but it's real. Some people experience those things. Then you have tactile, which is feeling things crawling or burning. Usually that's stimulant induced. So that movie Requiem for a Dream, you'll if you watch that movie, go find it on your streaming platform. That's going to help you to understand. Now, when you assess for hallucinations, you need to keep your poker face on respectfully, right? Because you don't want to ruin the therapeutic, you don't want to rupture the therapeutic bond. So you have to ask them, like, do you hear or see things others can't? What do they say? Do they ever tell you to do something? Can you make them stop? And you do that because you have to check for frequency, control, content, and dangers. And the tools that you can use is the PANS, which is the positive and negative syndrome scales, the BPRS, which is the brief psychiatric rating scale, and the CIRATS, which is the psychotic symptoms rating scales. Those are the tools that you can use, okay? And here's the golden rule. You need to make sure you always rule out drugs, delirium, or sleep deprivations. Because sometimes what looks like psychosis can just be that individual didn't have no sleep for 4 days and they drank 5 Red Bulls. Okay? And how to differentiate the big four, right? Hallucination is a false perception. They hear voices, okay? Delusion is a false belief. The government's tracking my every thoughts. They're watching me. Illusion is misperception. That, like the coat on the chair looks like a man, for example. And intrusive thoughts is unwanted but is recognized as your own, okay? So here's the mnemonic, HDII, which is hallucination, delusion, illusion, intrusion. So if your mind is playing tricks on you, that's a hallucination. If you're convinced someone's watching you, congratulations, you got delusion. So this is how you differentiate between the different perceptual experiences. Now, I always say, like, what goes on in the media, whether it's a song, a movie, a show, I feel like that is the best clinical training tool you will ever have, counselors, okay? So, like, when we talk about A Beautiful Mind, right, that John Nash film, we are talking about auditory hallucination because that's classic schizophrenia with commentary voices, okay? When we talk about the Netflix series You, classic delusional disorder, because Joe Goldberg thinks stalking equals love, right? Exactly. And then when we talk about Schizophreniform, I think about Joker, like when you watch him in a film or his most recent film, because we're watching his breakdown in real time, right? And then Requiem for a Dream, that's perfect example, substance-induced psychosis. That's textbook classic case. And then Homeland is like schizoaffective because Carrie's she's bipolar mania with psychosis. So basically, Netflix, Amazon Prime, whatever you watch or stream is basically a clinical practium, okay? Now, if you watch it with DSM goggles, then you will see where this makes sense. You will start making the dots. Now, psychosis, this one is if you blink, you will miss it, okay? So, brief psychotic disorder, right? This one is, the duration is less than a month. The trigger is usually by stress or trauma. The perfect visual will be Black Swan. Why? Because Nina's brain said, you know what? Ballet and perfectionism, that's too much. And then when you assess in brief psychotic disorder, you always want to rule out substances and medical causes. Hallucinations are usually vivid, but they're short term, And the treatment is like low dose antipsychotics. I cannot pronounce that name. Don't embarrass me. Risperidone, but learn it because it may be on your test. And supportive therapy is another treatment approach. The prognosis is they bounce back sometimes faster than we expect. So if there's a safety concern, ethically, you want to hospitalize first and then talk feelings later. Now, Schizophreniform is like schizophrenia's trials run. The symptoms last for 1 to 6 months. I want you to think about Joker in his movie, right? He's unraveling, but we don't know if it's permanent yet, okay? And for this particular disorder, for your assessment, you will use PANS and you will do a functional check. The treatment is early antipsychotic drugs, CBT for psychosis, and family education. The mnemonic I want you to remember is form habits early, because for this particular disorder, early intervention changes everything. I'm going to repeat it again. The mnemonic I want you to remember is form habits early, because early intervention changes everything. For this diagnosis, counselor, is imperative that you be gentle because it's a provisional diagnosis. It is not permanent. Now, this is the big one, schizophrenia. The duration is for more than 6 months and there is a functional decline. You hear the difference from the other ones we discussed? This one means there's a functional decline. Auditory hallucinations dominate, okay? They have commentary and conversations, okay? The perfect example is Beautiful Minds in that movie. John Nash is intelligent, he's highly functioning, and he's still battling those invisible voices in his mind. His treatment is second generation antipsychotics. So if you have a client, their treatment will be second generation antipsychotics like clozapine, right? Especially for cases that are resistant. Therapy modality will be CBT and giving them social skills and also rehab. And the mnemonic I want you to remember is close the gap, because that's the most effective for treatment-resistant schizophrenia, but it also requires regular blood monitoring due to ambulatory cytosis risk, okay? Now, ethically, Tarasoff rule still applies, okay? Because if the voices says to harm someone, counselor, you have a duty to protect, always. Another thing I want to mention, that the onset patterns in males is typically in their late to early 20s. Females are in their 20s to early 30s. The later onset in females may be related to the protective effects of estrogen. Now, this is schizoaffective disorder, okay? This one is like schizophrenia and mood disorder. So it's like they have psychosis plus a mood episode, but the psychosis sticks around for at least 2 weeks without mood symptoms. So perfect movie example is Homeland's. Carrie Matheson in that movie, she's the blueprint. She's manic, paranoid, and she's brilliant all at once, okay? Treatment planning for this particular disorder, you need your mood stabilizer, your lithium, your valproate, and also it can be antipsychotics. The mnemonic I want you to remember that helps me, the affective in schizoaffective, affect equal add mood medication, okay? So for this particular disorder, you always want to check lithium levels and monitor for suicidality. And yes, just like she was in a movie, you can still save the country and still need therapy. Now, delusional disorder, classic case of You, Netflix, Joe Goldberg, that was his name, right? So it's this fixed false belief lasting more than 1 month, and they can function, their functioning remains intact, There's no prominent hallucination or disorganization, just rigid conviction. I'm right, you're wrong, okay? So their assessment is logical, but it's stuck. Their belief doesn't shift with evidence. So for treatment, you need to be gentle CBT therapy for reality testing, low dose atypical antipsychotics, and your ethical cue: do not confront, build rapport before challenging their belief, right? Remember, I said for this particular disorder, I want you to think about Joe Goldberg. Perfect case, right? Because he's convinced that the barista loved him back, okay? So let's talk about the other subtypes, right? For example, we have persecutory types. They're out to get me. They think they're being spied on, they're being followed, or they feel like somebody's trying to sabotage them. John Nash, in A Beautiful Mind, he believed the government agents were always tracking him. He clinically presents as high anxiety. He has mistrust. The vigilance is there. The Erotomanic type is they love me back. They're convinced a public figure or stranger is secretly in love with them. Perfect example, Stand from Eminem's song. Like, if you read the lyric, he tries to interpret that every song he has is proof of a mutual relationship between him and Eminem. Later on, he goes off to commit suicide. So just think about how delusions will cause people to act out of their norm. Okay? And then they often attempt to contact whoever that they have this delusion that they are in love with them with, and they're constantly gift giving. So that's another thing for you to keep in mind too. And the Grandiose type is chosen or extraordinary. They have inflated self-importance or special mission. Or special mission. I want you to think about Truman in the Truman Show. He believed his life has global significance, okay? They may write manifestos or pursue unrealistic projects. This is the belief. I'm special, I have power, fame, or a divine mission. They also have an inflated sense of abilities. Many believe they're chosen or destined for greatness. Think of like someone having Kanye West level confidence 10 or 100 times without the artistry to back it up, okay? So they're more so like the main character energy gone clinical, right? And then you have the jealous type, where it's like my partner is cheating on me. They're preoccupied with imagined infidelity. They're constantly checking, or they're making accusations. Perfect example, if you were in high school and you read Othello, he had consumed false suspicion of betrayal. Or the movie with Beyonce and Idris Elba, how the co-worker was convinced that she was finna take Beyonce's man. Yes, I said finna. Yeah, because she really thought. Not on her internet, right, ladies? So when you working with these type of disorder, always think about safety and boundaries, because they are the most common. And then the somatic type, that's when they have something's wrong with their body. They believe in hidden diseases or infestations despite medical reassurance. Perfect example, The Aviator, how Howard Hughes was obsessed with contamination and illness, okay? This usually presents first to medical settings. Now we have substance medication induced psychotic disorder. This one, I always want you to know that this one is all about timing, okay? So, and I say timing because psychosis happens during or right after substance use. Think about Euphoria. If you watch that show on HBO, Rue is seeing and feeling things that aren't there, okay? Their hallucinations can be visual or tactile. They can have bugs, shadows, paranoia. The treatment is always detox first, meds second, okay? And they usually give, don't let me say this name wrong, Haparadol. Hey, I'm a counselor, not a medical doctor. I just know it starts with it. It's like Halo. Or olazepine for agitation, okay? And the mnemonic is starts with substance, ends with sobriety. That's what I want you to remember. And make sure you document clearly and encourage treatment without judgment, because relapse is part of the story, not the end. Now, psychotic disorder due to another medical condition is, if it's medicals, the medications can fix it, right? House MD give us a master class, like lupus, infection, thyroid issues, even low B12 can cause psychosis. Hallucinations are usually visual or olfactory. They can smell smoke, seeing people. The treatment is you have to treat the root cause, and maybe or almost always short-term antipsychotics if needed. Mnemonic to remember: med causes, med fixes. Now, document that medical link like your life depends on it, because it does. So that's an ethical thing, okay? And here is your cheat sheet. This tells you the duration and the onset, okay? Because psychotic disorders is like a spectrum of disorder, okay? That will tell you how to differentiate between what is what. So please make sure you know the duration for every one of these disorders under the psychotic umbrella, okay? And then also know the hallucination type or the pattern, because that seals the deal. Now, if it's stress-induced and short, brief, psychotic. If it's 1 to 6 months, schizophreniform. If it's chronic with decline, schizophrenia. When you add a mood to it, schizoaffective. No hallucinations, just obsession, delusional. Drugs involved, substance induced. And if a CAT scan can solve it, it's medical. Easy, done. Now, ethically, within the umbrella of the psychotic disorder, not only do you have to follow the law, but the law must meet the empathy, okay? So you also have to keep in mind tear-off duty. Warn if there is a credible threat. Also, involuntary commitment. If there's a danger or they're gravely disabled, and always think about the least restrictive environment. Always step down when they are safe. Informed consent helps because it breaks down the medication like you're teaching it to a friend, and you want to make sure you keep in constant communication with their other health providers. And then there's exceptions to the confidentiality, whether it's abuse, danger, or court order. And please, counselor, document like your job depends on it and your license, because it does. And here's the final takeaway. When someone says, I feel like I'm being watched, or I hear voices, your job is not to correct them, okay? Your job is to protect them. You are the calm in their chaos. Psychosis is not just a diagnosis, it's a symptom that can show up across several disorders like schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder, and brief psychotic disorder. When you understand how it presents and what it feels like for the person experiencing it, you don't just pass an exam, you change lives. That's why it's important to remember these things, not just for an exam, so when you do become a counselor, okay? And keep on studying, keep showing up. And when you humming, my mind's playing tricks on me, or somebody is watching me, hum that whenever you need to remember the difference between belief and perception. And for giggles, drop your celebrity delusions in the comments, okay? Who did you swear you were destined to be with back in the day? I do read the comments, all of them, so don't leave me hanging, okay? And please, please, please share this video to Reddit, your group chats, study guides, anywhere you know counselors are studying and this information can potentially help them. And remember, every share helps this channel grow so I can keep building resources and one day officially say goodbye to that 9-to-5 lifestyle. Yes, because it's ghetto out here. I'd rather be doing this. I enjoy doing this. And before you go, make sure you like, subscribe, and grab your DSM chart and mini narratives. They are on Gumroad. I have the mini narratives. Yes, I'm so proud of me. I posted them to Gumroad. There's a full set of 10 cases with 5 questions each, all about what we discussed in this video. And there's another set, which is a mini, which is a set of 3 for quick recall. Okay, I designed those to help you practice. The mini narratives helps you solidify what I said in the video so you can practice and you can remember it. And as we further go on, then you'll be able to assess your clinical judgment. How are you going to have the clinical judgment if you don't have the foundations, right? And that's what they're here for. They're designed to help you practice basic clinical reasoning and reinforce everything you are learning here. I know many of you have been asking about my full-lived narrative practice cases. And yes, I'm still working on them. I'm a perfectionist. Can you blame me? I'm also an educator, so I have to make sure when I do this, it needs to be right with how the questions are worded and asked, and I want it to assess what it's supposed to assess. So thank you for being patient with me. I'm working on them, and I'm editing them, and I'm tightening them up. I want to make sure they are rigorous and realistic and they meet your expectation. In due time, I'll release them. That's why you need to subscribe so you can know when I release them. And I promise you they will be worth the wait. I want you to stay tuned because in my next video, I'll be breaking down how to use client maps for every diagnosis that we discuss, because that's going to help you to master the treatment plan, and that's going to further support your clinical judgment. And remember, finally, psychotic disorders exist on a spectrum. They're related to schizophrenia, but not all psychosis equals schizophrenia, okay? And they also have a schizophrenic personality disorder that I will talk about in an upcoming video. All right, go ahead, post your delusions and blessings, and share this video. And as always, help a sister out so I can help you pass.